That was my outlet, my fantasy. Good things would happen because they always happened in the movie. So I never doubted that I wasn't going to somehow succeed.
What if I told you that America's sweetheart, the woman who made millions laugh for decades, secretly harbored deep resentment towards some of the most powerful men in Hollywood? What if the kindest, most beloved comedian in television history couldn't forgive betrayals that cut so deep they changed her forever? Carol Burnett. The name alone brings warmth, laughter, and nostalgia. For over 6 decades, she's been television royalty, gentle, gracious, the epitome of class. But at 90 years old, Carol Burnett finally broke her silence. In a rare, brutally honest interview with Rolling Stone magazine, she revealed the names of men who wounded her so deeply that even after all these years, forgiveness remains impossible. These weren't distant strangers or casual acquaintances. These were men who played crucial roles in her professional journey and personal life. Men who betrayed her trust, sabotaged her career, mocked her publicly, and broke her heart. Before we reveal who these men are and what they did to Carol Burnett, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This story goes deeper than you can imagine, and you won't want to miss a single revelation. Drop a comment below. Have you ever worked with someone you thought you could trust, only to be completely betrayed? Because that's exactly what happened to Carol multiple times. So who were these men? And among them, who did Carol Burnett hate more than anyone? Let's find out. The golden image cracks. For decades, Carol Burnett carefully preserved a public image of warmth, grace, and unshakable kindness. She was the woman who pulled her ear at the end of every show, a secret signal to her grandmother that everything was okay. She was the comedian who made physical comedy an art form while maintaining dignity and heart.
Legendary comedian Carol Burnett.
But behind that warm smile was a woman who had been hurt, manipulated, and betrayed by men she trusted. The entertainment industry in the 1960s and 70s wasn't kind to women, especially women who wanted creative control. Carol fought for every inch of respect she earned. She demanded to produce her own show when CBS wanted to hand control to male executives. She insisted on creative freedom when network suits wanted to dictate content. And she won those battles, but not without making enemies. Now, at 90, Carol Burnett decided the time had come to tell the truth. In that Rolling Stone interview, she didn't hold back. The journalist noted that Carol's voice, usually bright and full of laughter, grew quiet and serious when certain names came up. There are men in this industry, she said carefully, who I simply cannot forgive. Not because I hold grudges, but because what they did changed me, changed how I trust, changed how I work, changed who I am. So who were they? The list includes a co-star she once considered her closest creative partner, a husband who betrayed her in the most painful ways imaginable, a Hollywood legend who violated her boundaries in the middle of the night, an icon who publicly mocked everything she stood for, and a powerful producer who kept her off one of television's biggest stages for nearly 50 years. Each story is more shocking than the last, but one name stands above all the others. One man Carol Burnett hated more than anyone. We'll get to him. But first, we need to understand the betrayal that almost destroyed her show and came from the man standing right beside her on stage. Harvey Korman, the partner who exploded in the 1970s, the Carol Burnett Show dominated American television.
The Carol Burnett Show had a very successful run for 11 seasons.
Every Saturday night, millions of families gathered around their TV sets to watch Carol and her ensemble cast create magic. At the heart of that magic was Carol's partnership with Harvey Korman, a comedic duo so perfectly synchronized that audiences believed they were born to perform together. Carol was the soul, Harvey was the spark. Together, they were unstoppable. Harvey Korman could make Carol break character with just a look. Their chemistry was electric, their timing flawless. Critics called them the best comedy team since Lucy and Daisy. But behind the thunderous applause and Emmy Awards, something was rotting. Ask yourself this: what happens when one partner starts to resent the other's success? By 1974, The Carol Burnett Show had just won its 4th Emmy. CBS renewed it for 3 more seasons. Ratings were at an all-time high. That's when Harvey Korman started to crack. Costume designer Bob Mackie, who worked with them for years, later revealed that Korman had become increasingly irritable and short-tempered. He started avoiding Carol backstage. He complained constantly. He snapped at crew members. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash, Mackie recalled. You could see it coming, but nobody knew how to stop it. Many believed Korman felt overshadowed by Carol's ever-brightening spotlight. She was The Carol Burnett Show, after all. Her name was on the title. Her face was on the promos. And while Harvey was brilliant, he was ultimately in Carol's orbit, not his own. That resentment built and built until one April afternoon in 1974, when everything exploded. The Studio 33 explosion, Studio 33 at Television City in Los Angeles.
At Hollywood's legendary Television City.
The cast was rehearsing a segment with guest star Petula Clark, who had just flown in from London. During Harvey's scene, there was a lighting error that left his face partially in shadow. Harvey Korman snapped. He threw his script onto the floor and shouted, "All these years, and no one can get this right." The entire sound stage fell silent. You could hear the cameras humming. Director Dave Powers tried to calm him down, but Korman kept going, complaining, gesturing wildly. And then he made a critical mistake. He hinted that Carol herself didn't care about the issue, that she didn't respect the technical side of the show. That cut Carol deeply. Carol Burnett, known for her patience, her kindness, her steady leadership, stood up from her seat in the audience and walked straight onto the stage. Without raising her voice, she said clearly, "Harvey, I've had enough. If you can't respect everyone here, then you don't need to be here at all." The room froze. According to Bob Mackie's book, you could hear a microphone hit the floor. Harvey stared at her for a long moment. Then he walked out. Nobody followed him. Carol sat in silence for more than half an hour, staring at Harvey's empty chair, whispering, "I didn't want things to happen this way, but he went too far." The aftermath, hours later, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner ran a bold headline: "Harvey Korman walks out of Carol Burnett's show mid-rehearsal." Hollywood went into overdrive. Variety confirmed that Burnett had endured the situation for far too long and finally lost her patience. For 3 days, the television industry buzzed nonstop. Vicki Lawrence tried calling Korman. He wouldn't answer. Carol continued filming, never once mentioning his name. Then, on Wednesday morning, Harvey Korman called CBS. His voice trembled. "I need to speak to Carol." When Carol picked up, he whispered, "I was wrong. I want to come back." The next day, Korman showed up at the morning meeting. He apologized to the entire crew, then turned to Carol. "I forgot why I started." Carol smiled gently and embraced him. The studio burst into applause, but everyone who witnessed that moment knew something between them had changed forever. Harvey continued on the show until 1977, then quietly left.
Harvey continued with the show until 1977 before making a quiet departure.
Carol stayed in touch, but their friendship never returned to what it once was. In a 1983 Entertainment Tonight interview, when asked about Harvey, Carol smiled softly and said, "Harvey made me laugh the most, and he gave me the biggest headaches." That eruption became one of CBS's most famous behind-the-scenes legends. It reminded Hollywood how fragile creative partnerships can be when two egos collide head-on. Carol grew stronger after that incident, more disciplined, more cautious, more protective of her boundaries. But the turbulence in her life didn't end there. In fact, the next betrayal would be even more painful because it came from the man who was supposed to love her most. Joe Hamilton, the husband who betrayed her. Behind the dazzling spotlight of The Carol Burnett Show lay a quietly crumbling marriage. Carol Burnett and Joe Hamilton, once considered CBS's golden couple, slowly watched their vibrant, laughter-filled world sink into sadness and silence. Their story began like a fairy tale. It was 1960. Carol was a young actress on The Garry Moore Show.
The Garry Moore Show helped her hone her talents in sketch comedy and learn to play several roles in a single show.
Joe Hamilton, 10 years her senior, was a seasoned producer who had worked with Steve Allen and the Colgate Comedy Hour. They met during a taping at CBS in New York. Carol later recalled, "The way he looked at me made me feel like I truly mattered." 3 years later, they held an intimate wedding in California, surrounded by close friends and colleagues. By 1967, when The Carol Burnett Show officially debuted, Joe Hamilton was producer, advisor, and behind-the-scenes collaborator. For the next several years, they were a perfectly balanced creative team. She brought warmth, he provided solid structure. But even brilliant success can place heavy pressure on a relationship that once seemed unshakable. The control begins. Costume designer Bob Mackie remembered that by 1975, Hamilton had begun tightening his control more than before. He insisted on reviewing and approving the guest list and scripts even before Carol saw them. In one production meeting, Hamilton bluntly suggested removing emotional segments so the show could focus solely on comedy. Carol immediately objected. The audience needs both emotion and laughter. That moment marked the beginning of a widening divide, not just in their creative partnership, but in their personal life. As the workload mounted, Hamilton became increasingly absent from home. At first, Carol assumed it was simply due to project demands. Then, the rumors began. The affair in August 1979, TV Guide hinted that a veteran producer was involved in a private relationship with a colleague from the editing department. No names were mentioned, but everyone knew exactly who it referred to. Several crew members frequently saw Hamilton dining with a young CBS editor at the Smokehouse restaurant near the studio lot. Carol never confronted him directly, but according to her close friend Vicki Lawrence, Carol was devastated when she accidentally overheard colleagues whispering about the overly intimate relationship between Joe and the young woman. Can you imagine hearing your own crew gossip about your husband's affair? The pain Carol must have felt is unimaginable. The financial betrayal. The breaking point came in 1982. While reviewing contracts, Carol's lawyer discovered that Hamilton had established Hamilton Productions in Beverly Hills.
This has been a Joe Hamilton production.
And registered several side projects from The Carol Burnett Show under his own name. One of these was Mama's Family, based on a sketch Carol herself had created. Yet she received no credit for ownership. It was the final straw. According to her biography, Carol confronted him directly in his CBS office. Trying to maintain her composure, she asked, "Do you think it's fair to turn what we built together into your personal property?" Hamilton replied coldly, "This is business, Carol. It's not personal." And just like that, everything ended. The divorce battle. On March 3rd, 1983, Carol officially filed for divorce with the Los Angeles County Superior Court.
Los Angeles Superior Court is the largest trial court in the nation.
The Los Angeles Times ran the headline, "Carol Burnett and Joe Hamilton split." Behind it, one of Hollywood's most complex asset divisions, Hamilton demanded full production rights, including profits from The Carol Burnett Show and its related projects. Carol was forced to fight to keep her own name and half the revenue. The trial dragged on for nearly a year. Reporters from People, Variety, and USA Today camped outside the courthouse daily. Carol tried to remain calm. Hamilton appeared increasingly exhausted. The two barely spoke to each other. By June 1984, the court ruled that Carol would retain the rights to the show's title, while Hamilton received 40% of broadcast profits. When asked how she felt, Carol simply smiled faintly and said, "We used to be a great team," until he forgot that I wasn't just a colleague. That remark immediately appeared on the cover of People magazine and echoed through countless talk shows across America. The aftermath. After the divorce, Carol severed all ties with Hamilton's works. The shows he produced afterward never regained their former glory. Joe Hamilton died of heart disease in 1991. Carol did not attend the funeral, but she sent a bouquet of white flowers with a note that read, "Be at peace, Joe. I will keep moving forward." The brief message carried all the unfinished emotions that had lingered between them. Years later, in an interview at the Paley Media Center, Carol gently shared, "Joe taught me that in this business, love is not enough. Trust matters just as much." The betrayal from Joe Hamilton cut deeper than any professional slight ever could. He wasn't just her producer, he was her husband, the father of her children, the man she trusted with her career, her finances, and her heart. And he betrayed all of it. But as painful as Joe's betrayal was, there was another man whose behavior toward Carol was so shocking, so inappropriate, that it left her furious beyond measure. Marlon Brando, the 3 a.m. phone call. Sometimes Hollywood stories sound like unbelievable rumors until you find out they're entirely true. One of the strangest moments in Carol Burnett's life was the singular, almost surreal encounter between the comedy queen of CBS and Marlon Brando, fresh off his role in The Godfather. It was July 1972, a quiet summer night in Los Angeles. Carol was asleep at her home in Coldwater Canyon with her 2 daughters, when suddenly, at 3 a.m., the phone began ringing sharply through the stillness. The housekeeper, thinking there must be some kind of studio emergency, woke Carol immediately. Carol answered groggily, then froze in disbelief when she heard a deep, unmistakable voice. "Carol, this is Marlon Brando." At first, she thought someone was playing a prank, but Brando mentioned that he'd been watching reruns of the Carol Burnett show on CBS, and she realized it truly was Brando on the line. She politely thanked him, hoping the call would end soon, but Brando kept talking. The conversation stretched on for more than 30 minutes. He spoke about acting, Hollywood, and how television needed more women like Carol. His voice grew softer, slower, and his words gradually shifted into something uncomfortably personal. Carol later recalled, "I realized I was speaking to the real Marlon Brando, not one of his characters. He was captivating, talented, but also dangerous in ways that made me uneasy." When she sensed that Brando's comments were crossing the line, she gently but firmly interrupted, "Mr. Brando, I appreciate your kindness, but it's very late. I have to work early tomorrow." She hung up, thinking that would be the end of it. But by the next morning, Hollywood was in chaos. The media frenzy. The Hollywood Reporter ran a bold headline, "Marlon Brando calls Carol Burnett at 3 a.m. The Los Angeles Herald-Examiner followed with, "Brando seeks inspiration from CBS comedy queen." Gossip columnists like Luella Parsons and Rona Barrett insisted the call lasted over an hour and that Brando sounded especially enamored. CBS was forced to issue a statement confirming the call was personal in nature. Furious, Carol demanded that the PR team shut down the rumors immediately. But the story continued to spread. An anonymous source even claimed Brando had called again a few days later, though Carol never picked up. According to Vicki Lawrence, Carol felt deeply insulted and infuriated, worried the public would misinterpret what had happened. During lunch at Musso and Frank Grill, she confided in her friend, "He crossed every boundary possible. I can't believe Marlon Brando thought a call in the middle of the night was acceptable." The avoidance. From that day on, Carol avoided Brando entirely. At every industry event, she made certain she was never photographed anywhere near him. At the 1974 AFI Awards, when Brando unexpectedly appeared on the red carpet, Carol instantly turned and walked in the opposite direction. The press claimed it was coincidence, insiders knew better. From that moment forward, Carol's monthly public relations schedule included a familiar note: do not attend events where Brando will be present. A former CBS employee later confirmed that Carol consistently steered clear of any ceremony involving Brando. As for Brando himself, he never issued an official statement, but those who knew him said he once joked, "Carol takes things too seriously. It was just a conversation." Instead of easing the tension, the remark only made matters worse, highlighting the arrogance that had long been associated with him. For Carol, this wasn't merely a personal insult. It was a profound lesson about boundaries and trust in the entertainment industry. From that night on, she became far more cautious. A former crew member said Carol never again accepted phone calls after midnight, not even from CBS. But the next shock she faced was far more painful. This time, not a violation of her privacy, but a public humiliation in front of hundreds of Hollywood guests. Cary Grant, the public mockery. Hollywood in 1968 was overflowing with glamour, champagne, and inflated egos. The Carol Burnett show had just become a phenomenon, sweeping the Emmys and turning Carol into one of television's biggest stars. That same year, Cary Grant, an enduring symbol of elegance from Hollywood's golden age, was honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. Two stars, two generations, they should have crossed paths with warm congratulations. But on that night at the Beverly Hilton, a single careless remark created a rift between two legends, one that never fully healed. The gala. The gala in the International Ballroom gathered towering names: Lucille Ball, Gregory Peck, Elizabeth Taylor, Jack Lemmon. Carol arrived radiant in a deep crimson gown designed by Bob Mackie, confident and glowing. After the ceremony, she approached Cary Grant's table with a glass of champagne, intending to congratulate him. Film critic Roger Ebert, who was present that night, wrote that the atmosphere shifted noticeably the moment Carol stepped closer. A director seated next to Grant tried to ease any tension. "Have you seen Carol's show yet? The whole country's obsessed with it." Grant smiled. His voice was soft, but laced unmistakably with sarcasm. "Oh, that show where she waves her arms around, makes silly faces, overacts. I don't understand why people enjoy that sort of thing." The response. Grant's remark dropped into the ballroom like a stone into still water. A few guests forced awkward laughs. Others instantly fell silent. Carol kept her smile, but her eyes changed. Without raising her voice, she responded calmly, "Maybe people prefer laughing with someone real rather than with perfection." The entire table went silent. Carol nodded politely and walked away, leaving Grant frozen with a distorted smile. And of course, Hollywood never forgets moments like that. The media backlash. 2 days later, the Los Angeles Times ran a short piece titled "Cary Grant and Carol Burnett, a Frosty Encounter at the Beverly Hilton." Although brief, the article subtly suggested that Grant had dismissed Carol's simple, unpretentious comedic style. The news spread quickly. Some defended Grant, claiming he was only joking, but television audiences, especially women, were outraged. CBS immediately released a pointed statement. Carol Burnett represents a form of comedy that is humanistic and intelligent, where laughter is born from empathy, not silliness. Polite as it was, everyone knew the message was aimed directly at Grant. Carol remained silent, but Grant escalated the tension. In an interview with Variety, when asked about American television comedy, he replied, "I prefer more sophisticated humor, something closer to the European style. Television today tries too hard to be funny." I mention no names, but everyone understood he was referring to Carol. Carol's silent victory. Carol didn't respond to the press. She simply continued doing her work quietly. And that season, the Carol Burnett Show reached the highest ratings in its history. She even invited her close friend, Lucille Ball to appear in a special episode. Lucille later recalled, "Carol told me the best response was for viewers to turn on their TVs and see that we were still there." Even so, Carol never forgot that night. When Paramount Pictures invited her to collaborate with Cary Grant on a musical in 1970, she politely declined, citing a busy schedule. A close friend revealed that behind closed doors, Carol once said, "I will not work with someone who belittles women's laughter." Grant never apologized and never mentioned the incident again. However, in a biography written years later, Grant admitted, "Carol is so smart and so strong that she sometimes made me feel insecure." Ironically, his condescension only strengthened Carol's determination. She continued creating down-to-earth characters, housewives, maids, seamstresses, ordinary people with warm hearts. Within 3 years, she won 3 consecutive Emmy Awards. From that bitter experience, Carol drew a simple but enduring truth. There is no need to argue. Let success speak for itself. Yet as her name rose to the top, her prominence unintentionally caused certain powerful men in the industry to feel threatened. One of them was Lorne Michaels, and what he did to Carol Burnett, keeping her off Saturday Night Live for nearly 50 years, may be the most shocking betrayal of all. Lorne Michaels, the 50-year snub. In the history of American television, this remains one of the most puzzling mysteries. For nearly 50 years, Carol Burnett, a trailblazer for women in comedy, was never once invited to host Saturday Night Live. Given her stature, many saw this as a deliberate snub. To understand why, we need to go back to 1975, when SNL premiered live from Studio 8H at Rockefeller Plaza.
You miss a show for any reason, you can grab a Saturday Night Live rerun pill, pop it in your mouth, and enjoy.
At that time, the Carol Burnett Show on CBS was in its 8th season and remained the most beloved variety show in America. Carol represented heartfelt, character-driven humor. Lorne Michaels was shaping a new era, sharper, bolder, heavily political. In the early days, critics suggested Carol as an SNL host to bridge 2 generations of comedy. What seemed like an innocent remark became the starting point of a silence that lasted decades. Behind the scenes at NBC, Carol's name was reportedly considered for season 2 in 1976. But Lorne Michaels vetoed the idea, arguing that her style didn't fit the spirit of the show. According to Live from New York, Back Bay Books 2002, one editor recalled Michaels calling Carol the face of old television, insisting that he was creating something entirely new. That comment fueled speculation for years. By 1981, Washington Post journalist Tom Shales wrote that Carol had once expressed interest in hosting, but had never received an invitation. The article caused public outrage. Hundreds of fans wrote letters to NBC questioning why America's most beloved female comedian was being ignored. A week later, NBC issued a short statement. Hosts are chosen according to the content and tone of each season. Hardly anyone believed that explanation. Carol's response. Carol had never publicly demanded to host, but insiders knew she felt treated with indifference. During an appearance on Larry King Live in the late 1980s, when asked about the issue, Carol smiled and answered with light sarcasm, "Perhaps I'm not bold enough for them to notice." Those who worked with Michaels described him as fiercely protective of the SNL identity. Youthful, rebellious, irreverent, the complete opposite of Carol's warm, humanistic style. A former editor told Rolling Stone in 1990 that Michaels even rejected a major sponsor's proposal to invite Carol for the show's 10th anniversary special, saying, "We respect her, but that's not our brand of comedy." That remark widened the gap. Over time, the relationship between them remained frozen. In 1991, at a Television Academy event in Los Angeles, both Carol and Lorne gave speeches. Bill Carter of the New York Times described how the audience rose in thunderous applause when Carol took the stage. Minutes later, Michaels spoke, and Carol stayed seated, smiling faintly, her eyes fixed elsewhere. The moment aired on Entertainment Tonight and was quickly dubbed the coldest look in Hollywood. The story might have faded into obscurity until 2023, when NBC produced Carol Burnett, 90 Years of Laughter and Love to honor her career. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, when asked whether she regretted never hosting SNL, Carol smiled and answered, "I guess they didn't need me, but I didn't need them either." The comment shattered 50 years of silence. Within a day, the hashtag #InviteCarol2SNL spread widely, with thousands urging NBC to correct what many believed should never have been allowed to last half a century. Later, during a panel at the Paley Media Center, Carol added, "Some people don't understand that kindness has a strength of its own." The deeper meaning. Lorne Michaels never directly addressed Carol's comments, but the message was clear. For nearly 50 years, one of the most powerful men in television deliberately excluded one of the most influential women in comedy. Why? Because he saw her as a threat to his vision. Because her warmth didn't fit his edgy brand. Because she represented something he wanted to move away from. Carol Burnett didn't need SNL to cement her legacy, but the fact that she was never invited speaks volumes about how women in comedy have been treated, even by those who claim to champion new voices. And that brings us to the final question. Among all these men, Harvey Korman, Joe Hamilton, Marlon Brando, Cary Grant, Lorne Michaels, who did Carol Burnett hate more than anyone? Closing, after decades of silence, Carol Burnett finally spoke the truth about the men who hurt her most. Harvey Korman, the partner who exploded in jealousy and shattered their creative bond. Joe Hamilton, the husband who betrayed her with infidelity and financial manipulation. Marlon Brando, who violated her boundaries with a 3 a.m. phone call that crossed every line. Cary Grant, who publicly mocked her down-to-earth comedy in front of Hollywood royalty. And Lorne Michaels, who kept her off Saturday Night Live for nearly 50 years out of ego and prejudice. But who did Carol Burnett hate more than anyone? The answer might surprise you. It was Joe Hamilton, because the others were professional slights, boundary violations, or acts of disrespect. Painful, yes, but they didn't destroy her sense of trust in the people she loved. Joe Hamilton did. He was her husband, the father of her children, the man she built an empire with, the person she trusted with her heart, her finances, and her future. And he betrayed all of it with an affair, with financial manipulation, with cold indifference to the partnership they had created. That's why, when he died in 1991, Carol didn't attend the funeral. That's why she could forgive Harvey's outburst, avoid Brando's calls, brush off Grant's sarcasm, and ignore Michael's snub. But she could never forgive Joe, because he didn't just hurt her professionally, he broke her heart. The lesson, Carol Burnett's story, teaches us something profound. Kindness is not weakness. Grace under pressure is not submission. And silence is not acceptance. Carol spent decades being gracious, professional, and kind, even to men who didn't deserve it. But at 90 years old, she decided the world deserved to know the truth. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? Have you worked with someone who took credit for your ideas? Have you had to cut ties with someone you once considered family? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this video opened your eyes to the reality behind Carol Burnett's smile, make sure you smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because Hollywood has more secrets, and I'm just getting started revealing them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.